Welcome to the Kawarthas Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Garrity from Matty G Digital.
And we are recording from the Thrive Podcast Studio at Thrive Co-working Community, 18 Kent Street West in downtown Lindsay, Ontario. And today we are talking about how Matt went from chaos to being bored at work. And this went on the list because you texted me about how you should do a case study on me because of going from chaos to being bored at work. And I think it was just fun to talk about.
Yeah, it was the summer where I really reeled things in. And coming out of the summer, bored is maybe an aggressive word, but I would say I definitely...
It was a moment of boredom, I think, that, we don't want to say you're bored at work all the time, but it was a cool milestone moment where there was a time where someone canceled a call and you just got bored because everything was taken care of and you didn't have like a hot list of a bunch of stuff to do.
That's true. Now I'm remembering that, where I had nothing else to do. I couldn't really get ahead. It didn't really benefit anything to get ahead. It was just a moment where I was kind of puttering around my office, and I thought, I'm just going to go home then. I think it's happened 3 times in the last 90 days at least.
And I just love it because that's how it should work. We sometimes think that business has to be chaos, that we always should be trying to get ahead, even though we are never, ever ahead. And when you actually structure in the things you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do them, and then you trust that, it's like, you have those moments where someone cancels a meeting and it was a time set aside for business development. And then it's like they cancel it. That sucks. But you don't have to now try to get ahead on something that's scheduled to happen, next Monday. And that is like brilliantly the way every business should run. It's like, this is the time I do this. This is the time I do that. And when you're organized and it flows, and then you get that curveball of someone canceling, you don't have to make up something else. You can just take the time off.
I remember having a really hard time with the idea that because work was not chaotic, I was not being successful. Mm-hmm. And I associated success with chaos, where I had to be like head down, running as fast as I could at stuff. Yeah. And it took time. It didn't take a lot of time, but it took time to adjust to that and recognize there's still a ton of work to be done, but you've achieved something kind of amazing here.
And that is, it's normal to have that belief that work has to be chaos. We also, as human mammals, have nervous systems and we get comfortable in that stress. And even when, I think about for myself, in the past, when I would envision my ideal future self, it was always like busy, chaotic. I'm doing all these things. I'm making it all happen, right? And I kind of am in the middle of doing some of those things in my life and realizing that I need to get rid of some of it. And I've been on a journey of like removing certain things like that from my life. But when we think, hey, business will be successful when I am, running around with the Bluetooth in my ear, hustling calls all the time and putting out fires, we kind of start creating that vision for ourselves. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can be smooth and organized to the point where, if something cancels, you just get bored.
Yeah, and somewhere along the lines, we've been told that being busy is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Whether it is like our personal lives or professional lives. And I think that there's people and business owners specifically that really lean into that and take a lot of pride in their business being chaos. And that's how they should measure success, is by how busy and chaotic things are. And I'm just not built that way.
Yeah, and what I love about that is there are some businesses where chaos is your business, right? You manage chaos, and the people I've met who are really good at that are typically very low stress, calm individuals, but they've built a business about being able to handle all of those things that come in, and they have a system, and they're like controlled chaos because that's just the nature of the business. I think of I'm teaching in this supply chain program right now at Fleming, and some of our guest speakers. That's what they love about supply chain is like there's all these theories and things you can practice, but every day a bunch of stuff goes wrong. Right, a truck doesn't start in the morning. What do we do? Right, hit a flat tire. Like there's all of these things happen, and your job is fixing them. But that doesn't have to be your business, right? You can be slow and methodical and scheduled.
There's no time in my line of work that the truck doesn't show up. I guess there's times where expectations were not met from a deadline perspective, maybe internally, but those are never reflected on the end user, for instance. Um, but things just kind of move along at a certain pace. I, for years, have thought that marketing agencies have projected this idea that there's always emergencies in
Yeah.
marketing. And if someone asks you to do something in the next 10 minutes, you're supposed to do it in the next 90 seconds or you're a failure. And I've never understood that. I can't think of 5 emergencies that I've encountered in my entire decade of digital marketing. Like actual emergencies where I was like, this has to stop right now. I could probably name them. It's
Yeah.
usually like an overspend on an account, and you're like, well, I need to stop this now. But
Yeah.
also, like, the damage is already.
Yeah. Overspend, the wrong thing goes to the wrong account, like those little things that, happen, but the world doesn't end
No.
from them. So it's, yeah.
Someone once said, though, like, anytime you overspend, so if you're supposed to spend $500 on ads that month, and then you spend $1,000, the guy was just like, well, did they get $1,000 worth of leads then?
Yeah.
Like, what's the
And
difference?
if it works.
If it worked,
yeah.
it worked. So, like, there's no real true emergency
Yeah.
ever, especially with digital marketing. It's not a billboard that's been printed wrong or a radio ad that sounds awful. Digital marketing is that we can delete stuff. We can turn things off like very quickly in an emergency setting. So, like, there's never really an emergency with that stuff.
Yeah, it's good to understand what that means to your business. And I think even thinking through that word, what is that emergency? What's that like chaos or panic I need? And with almost every business, there's a way to realize that doesn't actually exist the way you think it does. And even I think of some of my clients who are super stressed out and worried about that. Usually a phone call diffuses it all. And you don't want it to be a repeatable, if there's an emergency every day, then there's a structural problem. But once you start not having that emergency happening, you start planning in everything, you now create that environment where, you might get bored at work. And if your numbers are growing, if you have, if your other sales calls are showing up, it's like big deal. One person missed. That's just part of how business goes anyway, because not 100% of people show up to their calls and not 100% of people close on them either.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because people have asked, how did you make it? How did you go from chaos to being bored? And I never really have an answer, and I'm trying to come up with a better answer. If there's 3 things, it's a structured calendar, it's finding the right people, which sounds ridiculous, but I can touch on that. And then it's finding the right accounts to work with.
Yeah.
So finding the right sales. So I started a couple of years ago of structuring calendar. Maybe it was this year, the beginning of this year.
I think it was a bit earlier, but it takes a lot of people a while to like really dial it in.
And this recently, I've been protecting that time more. So like I used to set up, okay, I'm going to do this on this morning and then keep this open. And what I first did was I'm going to take all of my calls in the morning. So sales calls, account calls, I'm going to do all of them in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to set aside for what I call focus time. So I would block all that out. A couple things happened. One of which was I never protected the focus time. I very quickly was like, oh, if you can't make this call in the morning, let's do it in the afternoon. So I never protected the time. And then the second thing was that focus time had no direction. So it was, okay, you've got this time to do your actual work. Where should you focus your attention on?
Yeah.
And
And then you're guessing.
I was guessing. And I've got project management software. I've got other documents of like to do. I have things in my calendar coming up. I have things in my gut that I know I have to deal with. But the guessing did not help at all. And then taking that time off this summer where I was working one week and then not working the next week, like alternating weeks off, I was able to structure stuff in a way that just worked. And will I ever do 1 week on, 1 week off? Probably not. You texted me the other day, never say never. I'm the same way. I've learned that in my 5 years of doing things on my own.
I'm trying to remember why I said that, and I don't think it's podcast appropriate.
It was probably about being naked on stage.
Oh, yeah.
That's a different podcast. But like, will I ever take a week on and a week off? Probably not. But I did take away how to properly structure my calendar.
Yeah.
Where I had openings for sales calls, certain times of the day, regular. So it was a lot of variety for people. I found that I was not giving myself enough time to follow up with those or prepare for the next call. So I have more time set aside for that. I have time to actually work on every account and dedicate that focus time.
I love that just as I've referred a few people to talk to you by just saying that.
Yeah.
And I've also, some of the people we common work with, I've like made sure to intentionally drop that in, and everyone feels good when they know like they're not getting fit in. It's like there is a block on your calendar with their name on it where you are sitting down and you are working very hard at focusing. And what's funny about this is when we make fun or brag that you're like, oh, week on, week off. But that proves that you know how to manage your calendar. Yeah. So then when you tell people they have a morning in that calendar, there's a lot more trust that that's actually true and happening, which I think then allows you to do better work, allows you to get more clients, allows you to invest more in structuring, that allows you to keep taking free time off.
I think there's still a part of me that's embarrassed by how I structure some of my time and take my time off and all that. But I'm not coming around, but I've come around to the idea that I think people kind of like that I'm really structured with my time. I like that I'm taking this time off, and I have very dedicated time to them, because I think people don't want to work with someone that's chaos.
No.
If you don't have a plan, if you're like fitting them in, like you said, and like I was getting to the point where I'd be like, oh yeah, I got to talk to these people. Like I got to look at stuff to make sure everything's in order. But now I'm like, I've got that dedicated time to make sure things are in order. I've started structuring things. This will not be for everybody, but the way I do it is I dedicate an entire day to that account. So if I'm working with the custom cabinetry company, I spend the morning kind of just going over like what's happening, where are the wins, where are some things we need to improve, and I kind of get those in order. And then I'll put together the presentation or the conversation that I'm going to have with them later that day. I have that conversation with them. And then what I used to do, and a lot of people will do wrong, is they have that conversation and then not think about it for the next month. But then I dedicate an hour after that call to make sure everything we talked about actually moves forward.
Yeah.
So like I follow up with them. Here's the action items. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what you need to do, and we actually get those in there. Versus before, it was like, great talking to you. I will not think about you until our next call.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like I know all this stuff is gonna be taken care of right away, and like having that dedicated time.
And I just love that this is going to be what's, continues to sell you, because it gives a clear offering of, this is who I am, this is who I work for, this is why it works, this is how we do it. I don't need 8,000 customers, I only need so many. But now people clearly know what they're getting, and if that works for them, it works for them. If they want chaos marketer who's going to jump whenever they call, that's not who you are, right? Or the chaos marketer who's maybe going to think about their strategy if you nudge them, 2 months down the road, and all of that. Just that classic chaos. And I've been adjacent to so many different marketers and marketing firms that they just love and thrive on that absolute chaos.
I still get that sometimes. I'll have people say, like, I want someone to come to my office and sit down with me, and I'm going to tell them what to do, and I want them to like make those changes on the fly.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I've never heard that, and you're not going to find someone that's actually good at what they do.
Oh, it does
that's
that.
going
Yeah.
to do that
Yeah.
for you. Like, good luck with that type of thing. It's just, I hate, like, I don't like hopefully say this often, but like, I'm not a puppet, right? And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like angry about it in a way, but like, I'm not that person. I'm not there to take direction in that regard.
Yeah.
I want insight
Yeah.
to your business. I want feedback of what's happening in the business. Like, what are you hearing from customers? What is the team internally talking about? I don't need you to tell me this is the post that you need to do today.
Yeah.
That is never valuable. That's how the most successful relationships I've ever had have come from that.
Yeah.
People that hop on the call every month, they're like, here's what's going on internally. Here's some sales numbers. The sales team is getting questions about this. The sales team would like to sell more of this stuff. And that's it.
Yeah.
Not, I need you to do more posts. I need you to write this paper. None of that.
I think what we really need is some cat videos.
Oh, yeah. Funny cat videos is what the guy said. There's an online therapist from BC from 2 agencies ago. I didn't understand SEO very much at the time when I started. This was almost 10 years ago. And he was just, I was like, why can't we show up for funny cat videos? I'm like, well, sir, you are an online counseling company.
Yeah.
I remember being like, I was new. I couldn't say anything, but I was just like, I don't know what you want me to do. What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, that's so funny.
But I've thought about that recently, why one relationship has been so good over the years and why another relationship somewhat recently, similar type of industry, went sour. And it was because of that. The person was very respectful, understood what their role was, understood what I was there for, and gave insight and direction onto the business and the company, not feedback on the marketing that I was doing.
Yeah.
So, so the structured calendar stuff was extremely useful. And then we're still finding things that need to be adjusted.
Yeah, it'll always be an adjustment.
Yeah.
I've been following a lot of, thanks to our episode we did with Ryan Metcalf on Your Focused Life. And he follows a lot of deep work. And I've been going down that rabbit hole. And, it's not a set it and forget it, but it's a commitment to the process of tweaking and adjusting your calendar and finding what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people are like, oh, I hear you should do this. And then they try to do that and it doesn't really fit them. But you've found the method that just fits and works well with how you work.
And like being committed to it and patient and understanding like, okay, I did this week and it didn't work and I'm not going to give up on it. And like, okay, something here didn't work for a reason. How do I make it better? My big thing now is if there's stuff that I need to get involved in or catch up on, I don't have a lot of time for that.
Yeah.
So I've started to set aside catch-up time. Or I called it the beginning of every month, set the of, are there things that have got to be done this month that you know are kind of like lagging, that can't wait until that day that you have dedicated?
Yeah.
Making sure like we're setting the tone to get to those things, for instance. So the other thing was like finding the right people. That is extremely hard. Of course, I don't have any real insight into that.
I think the biggest insight for that is that it's a process and you have to keep going
Yeah.
until you find them. So you can't just sit back and hope that the perfect person shows up.
No.
Like you need to find people who will go on that and buy in to that journey
Yeah.
with you versus people who I worked with people who will just resist it and be like, oh, it's great you're trying to do that, but I would just rather you respond to my chaos, and then it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I've been through like 20 plus people that have kind of come and gone, most of them very positive. They've come, I've worked with them, they've in some cases got full-time jobs elsewhere, and they've gotten their own marketing stuff going on now or whatever. And it took a while to find like really good team, and you can be really, really critical of that. But I think the thing that I am focused on now with people is, like, it's a cliche to say, like, you're trying to find people that are smarter than you. You want them to be in line with your values and what you believe and like methodologies and stuff. But then you do want them to be like autonomous. You want them to be able to do whatever. You don't want to be able to nitpick them on little details. You want to give them high level wisdom, and hopefully they accept that. That's about it.
Yeah.
Because I've learned now, like, I can't teach or train people. I need to find people that share very similar beliefs in how I do social media, and then they can do it. And then when I look at them, like, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it aligns with your. I always hesitate when people talk about values, like aligning, because it just sounds like the cliche, like they should be honest and they should be this. But when it's specific, like, yeah, they need to be process oriented. They need to buy into like your method and strategy because that's what you're selling.
Yeah.
Right? It's not random acts of marketing or just random things that they come up with. It's they follow that. They're autonomous and they'll make decisions. They'll test the boundaries every now and then, and that could create something new that you just like better.
You're right. I don't really care about values. Not to say I don't care about values.
No, it is.
But
it's more the next layer of like real values, I think. Honesty, integrity, those are virtues that should be inherent. But a lot of businesses mess that up because they'll be like, did you see our value statement? Right? We're honest here, right? I've never seen one that says we're not honest.
Sometimes we're dishonest and we like to steal people's money, but most of the time we're good.
Oh yeah, my favorite is a place I worked very closely with who just were like, well, we value honesty, but we're also value forging agreements to try to trick people into thinking they signed something different than what they actually signed.
Yeah.
Right? That's just a fun thing to do.
Yeah. Like the social media person that I work with now, took a long time to find someone that I see their work and I recognize that looks like something I would have done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Where we had a meeting and I was like, hey, here's my methodology of stuff. And she was like very much in line with everything I said, to the point where I was a bit concerned. Because I was like, sounds like you're kind of being phony because you're agreeing with everything I'm saying. But like she bought in. Like, this is the way she thought about social media. We thought the same way about it and how to handle it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to explain, like, no, like, stay on this path. And she's been on that path and it's been outstanding.
That's awesome.
And then the last one was working with the right people or just getting the right sales, put it that way, which is really hard to do, and you swing and you miss a lot. So you make sales, and then afterwards you realize they were bad from the beginning. Some of them you're surprised by. Some of them end sooner rather than later. But I'm really fortunate. I don't want to be, again, that cliche of like, I've got the best customers. Not that. It's just everyone just kind of gets it and respects me.
Yeah.
No one's there to challenge me. No one's there to question, like, to test me. which is something I experienced a ton when I first started at the agency level specifically. But people are there to like test you and see if you're smart enough to do all this.
Yeah, that critical, the gotcha.
Yeah.
I find that when I do teaching, there's the odd student who's like that, and it's like, well, sure, I'm wrong. Everything I say is just wrong based on the thing you read, or
or like there's people now too, like, well, I'm thinking about using the brick method. Are you familiar with the brick method? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, oh, you should really look into this. I'm like, I don't know anything what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let me do my thing. And I'm very, very, very fortunate to work with all of those people that just kind of get it and respect that I am the expert. And they come in and we have a good conversation about business and talk about insights and where things are going business-wise, but they're never nitpicking any of the stuff that we're actually doing. So,
yeah, that's awesome. From chaos to bored at work.
Yeah, and it was like 3 days was it October specifically or November, where I just finished work for the day, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go home. And then my wife, when I got to the door, I was like, did somebody die here? Why are you home so early?
Yeah, that should happen, and that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah,
but when it happens, and just enjoy it.
Yeah,
and that's the goal of what we're trying to achieve here. Especially, to me, the big method is like, it doesn't have to be chaos. And if it is chaos, it's a sign to clean that chaos up.
I can't remember the last time I had to work at night, which is a big thing. When I used to do a good amount, and I hated it. So I tried to get away from it. It must have been sometime this year, like January was chaos.
Sometimes you have some projects and you're grinding away at night, but it's often your own stuff.
Usually it's in my head too. And usually if I do have to go to my computer to send something or do something, it's usually like 5 minutes. It's rare. And I'd have to like go send it to somebody else type of thing so they can handle it even.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It feels kind of wild that it was like not even a year ago where it was chaos. Peak chaos was 11 months ago. And like things were slipping away from that regard, and spent a lot of time just focusing on that. Focus on the plans, the processes, and the other stuff will come. So.
Yeah, I love that advice, because that's really, when I get into coaching, it's knowing what you're doing and then sticking to it, and what's the thing you can control, and what's that activity you can stick to. And that's really the way out of those chaos periods. You can't just wave a wand and fix all the things all at once.
I also find too, I've told people this as well, like when you are off, so like you are doing a month off on vacation, or you're every other week off in the summer, take that time to think about the gaps that you're seeing when you're gone and find ways to make it happen more, like the holidays. So like, why did this work? Or like, why am I getting this email? Why do I have to deal with it? Why am I the bottleneck?
Yeah.
I say like, I'm the worst bottleneck in the world for my business.
Yeah, I might be worse.
Well, I mean, I'm the bottleneck for my own business.
Yeah, and for the most part, almost every owner is the bottleneck.
And when you start to like sit back and look at what you are the bottleneck at, like when you're off and realizing like this is stuck because of me not being there, that's useful. And then you come back and like, okay, now how do I make that a bit
go better
away next time?
Yeah.
And it's like constantly a learning curve and like a tweak, and there's no magic beans again.
Yeah, no magic beans. I'll share, one of my students has a project, and name of the business I won't say, but it started out as slightly less crappy, right? So how do we make this problem slightly less crappy? And for me, that's brilliant, because often in college we get caught up with trying to make everything perfect, or like, what's this new revolutionary idea?
Innovation, disruption.
And this was like a very realistic student who's been through a bunch of stuff and is really quite knowledgeable. And it was like, how do we go to like slightly less crappy? And I was like, that's brilliant. That's your project. Like, that's just a constant. If you can have that constant behavior, especially in certain industries that don't get a lot of attention for like coaching and hustle bros, I was like, there's a big market for that. So just constantly make things slightly less crappy.
That's awesome. There's there's a method for that though. Like, is it called Kaizen? It's like a Japanese thing.
Oh yeah, there's like it's like the kind of total quality management or Lean Six Sigma is similar to Kaizen. There's a few those like Japanese methods of just always those little incremental improvements all the time.
Yeah, just patience and kind of trusting yourself and trusting the process.
Yeah, patience, trust, process, I think are all those elements. And, most people, they want the quick fix really fast. And, we did an episode on the holiday thinking of, what can happen in 11 months. Another client I work with was just talking about how, we've been working together for like quite a while now. And it's like, well, now we're actually going to start working on the stuff they came for in the first place, because it's patience and it's taking care of one thing at a time and just all of that stuff. And just knowing that that's the only way to go to bored at work from chaos is like slow and steady and methodical and patient. Awesome. What's the final thing you'd like the people to know?
Why do I hesitate the last couple of times you've asked me that?
It's because we didn't talk about it for a while.
I just think maybe I want to be more profound with what I'm saying. But if you would like to have a coffee with me, or if you'd like to have a chat with me to talk about how you can go from chaos to bored at work, go to my website and book a call at mattyGdigital.com.
Awesome. And I am the business coach that wants to help you in your business. You can find me at profitcoach.ca.